Hey everyone, ready to dive into something special? We're talking A Promised Land, Barack Obama's own take on going from, well, community organizing to the Oval Office.
And it's surprisingly personal, not just dates and speeches. We're talking Obama doubting himself, those tough calls, what it really felt like behind the scenes in a crazy historical moment.
Those behind-the-scenes bits got me. Like, ever wonder what it'd be like in the room when huge decisions are happening? Get ready, because we're uncovering all that and more.
Totally. Obama takes us back, way back to his political awakening in college at Occidental. But here's the thing. Traditional politics kind of turned him off. He saw it as, well, a little superficial.
He wanted impact, something real. He talks about being drawn to those social movements, everyday folks banding together to fight for change. That's true democracy in action.
And you see how those early figures, Gandhi, civil rights icons like John Lewis, Fannie Lou Hamer, they shaped how he saw the world, the power of everyday people, that grassroots energy.
Campaigns, elections, that was secondary. It was about lifting communities, empowering people from the ground up. That's huge throughout the book. And speaking of lifting others up, Michelle Robinson enters the scene. Young lawyer who, as Obama puts it, challenged his scruffy wardrobe and crazy dreams.
Grounding force, definitely, but she's a powerhouse in her own right, too. What makes this book sing is it's her story just as much as his, how they worked as a team, pushed each other, supported. Remember that fist bump on the campaign trail? Iconic. Symbol of their bond.
And that journey takes them to Chicago, Obama's first real taste of politics. No rose-colored glasses here. He learns tough lessons, compromise, the sometimes harsh reality of the game.
Even admits to becoming what he'd warned himself against a politician. Refreshing, that honesty. He owns his flaws.
Doesn't shy away from setbacks either. Getting trounced by Bobby Rush in that congressional race made him rethink everything, refine his message. But then, fast forward to 2004, the Democratic National Convention. His keynote speech catapults him on the national stage. Overnight, he's more than a senator. It's a phenomenon.
Defining moment, that speech. Not just the words, but how he delivered them. That hope, the possibility. He tapped into something the country was craving, a new kind of politics.
And it's fascinating seeing him handle this newfound fame, the pressure cooker he's in, learning the ropes of the Senate from guys like Dick Durbin, but also those partisan divides already so deep.
Oh, there's this telling story about Senator McConnell he shares. You can see the seeds of gridlock being sown, foreshadowing what's to come.
So, rising star, right. But wrestling with this massive decision running for president goes to Harry Reid, the Senate Majority Leader, for advice, expecting caution, right?
Reid throws him a curveball. Tells him now's the time. Reid sees it, the national mood, the hunger for change. Obama's perfectly placed to ride that wave.
Obama connects with young voters, minorities, independents in a way few politicians ever have. Pivotal moment, setting the stage for one of the most historic campaigns ever.
And speaking of, Obama doesn't sugarcoat the campaign trail. Brutal schedule, long days, pressure cooker, doesn't even begin to describe it.
He describes it as a blur. 16-hour days, endless motels, always on. But through it all, those little moments of humor, the bond with his team, Reggie Love, Marvin Nicholson, Robert Gibbs, they kept him grounded.
Those bits make it real. Running for the most powerful job in the world, but he's still human, needs his people, his family, those laughs to get through it.
And then, Sarah Palin. Talk about shaking things up.
Right, total curveball. Energized the Republican base in a way, honestly, McCain couldn't do alone.
It was like old versus new, insider versus outsider.
Exactly, and that says a lot about how politics were shifting.
And as if the campaign wasn't nuts enough, bam! Financial crisis. Lehman Brothers collapsing, markets tanking, auto industry hanging on by a thread.
Yeah.
The entire economy could have gone over the edge.
It was terrifying, honestly. The gravity of what Obama walked into, he describes it like a five-alarm fire, just constant pressure, those huge decisions, the weight of it all.
Imagine that, right? Sworn in as president, and the fate of the global economy is in your hands. Talk about pressure. And the book takes us into those internal debates, his economic team trying to navigate a total unknown.
You had Larry Summers pushing for that huge stimulus package, get the economy moving again. But Tim Geithner at Treasury, he was more cautious, worried about spending that much.
So you've got these brilliant minds disagreeing, clashing, high stakes doesn't even cover it.
And Obama goes big. The American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, huge stimulus. But you know what happened? The Republicans, they were furious. Government overreach, they called it.
It's wild to think back, but not one single House Republican voted for it. That division, it's mind-blowing. Set the stage for, well, everything that followed.
There's a scene Obama's meeting with these bankers, right? They're complaining, saying his words are making things worse, telling him to tone it down, reassure the markets, don't criticize Wall Street.
Wow. It shows you the disconnect, right? The people who caused the mess versus those living with the consequences. And that anger, that frustration, it wasn't just here, it was global.
Fueled the Tea Party here, too. Made things even more complicated for Obama.
So global financial meltdown,
Yeah.
totally divided Congress, and this populist movement gaining steam. Oh, and on top of that, he's got 2 wars. China, Russia, terrorism. Talk about a full plate.
And that's where you see his foreign policy taking shape. Diplomacy, engagement, rebuilding America's place in the world. But he's also clear-eyed about force when it's necessary. The bin Laden raid, for example.
That decision to give the go-ahead, he really wrestles with it in the book. Says it was the biggest call of his presidency. Takes you right inside the situation room, the discussions, the risks, how the decision was made.
Heavy stuff. The weight of that kind of power leading the free world. And it's not just bin Laden. We see him handling Putin, Medvedev in Russia, Hu Jintao in China, Sarkozy, Merkel.
And these amazing stories about those encounters, high-level meetings where global policy is being hammered out, how he handled those relationships, finding common ground, advancing U.S. interests, but knowing that cooperation matters.
That part about Buchenwald, the concentration camp, really got to me. Horrors of the past, but also a reflection on leadership, on never forgetting.
He talks about finding that empathy, even in conflict, even with an enemy. Powerful stuff coming from a wartime leader. And while he's juggling global crises, there's this whole other thing, right? Healthcare, one of the most controversial issues out there.
Yeah, healthcare reform. Presidents have tried and failed for ages. Obama comes in determined to finally make universal coverage happen.
He knew it wouldn't be easy.
No, he knew the politics of it all, the compromises. It was a minefield.
It's actually amazing to see how the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, how it actually came about. The book takes you right into the thick of it, those fights, the deals, the pressure from all sides, not just Republicans.
Even his own party. Some Democrats wanted a single-payer system, the whole shebang. Others, they were nervous about going too far, too fast, worried about voters freaking out.
Tightrope Walk doesn't cover it. Balancing those competing interests and still trying to deliver on this huge promise of reform.
Grueling. He talks about the hours spent negotiating, the compromises. It was exhausting.
And against all odds, he gets it passed. The Affordable Care Act. Was it perfect? No. Did it go far enough for some? Nope. But it was a big deal.
Millions got insurance who didn't have it before. A step towards fairness, even if it wasn't the revolution some wanted, and it built a foundation.
Speaking of massive challenges, climate change. Something Obama clearly felt strongly about. He called it a defining challenge. Came in ready to make things happen both at home and globally.
But again, that Congress. Talk about a brick wall.
A lot of Republicans, they weren't just skeptical about climate change, they were hostile to the whole idea, let alone doing anything about it.
So he tries for that middle ground, right? Cap and trade, limiting greenhouse gases, but making it an economic thing. Incentivize businesses to pollute less.
He made the case it would spark innovation, create jobs, clean energy. Better for everyone in the long run. Market-based approach, you'd think some conservatives would be on board, but no. Too much resistance. The bill died in the Senate. A tough loss for him.
It shows you the uphill battle with climate change. Global issue needs everyone on board and a willingness to think long-term past the next election cycle. Even with the best intentions, a president can't do it alone.
Reading those sections, healthcare, climate, you really feel Obama wrestling with that, what power actually IS, what's possible in a democracy? And that might be the most interesting part of this whole book, how he thinks about leadership, what it means to lead in a messy, complicated world.
He's upfront about the tough stuff, doubts, frustrations, even times he was, I think, pretty close to despair, honest about where he fell short, times he wishes he'd pushed harder or maybe tried a different way.
But he never gives up on hope. It's incredible. Even with the setbacks, the people fighting him, the cynicism, that belief in progress, it shines through.
That's what makes A Promised Land so powerful, so relevant, even now. Hope, pushing forward, believing we can build something better even when it's hard. That's a message we need.
So there we have it, our deep dive into A Promised Land. We've covered a lot from those early days, what shaped him to his presidency, what he left behind.
A book full of insights for anyone interested in leadership, politics, history, but maybe even more. It's a story about the challenges we face as a country, as a planet, and those challenges, they haven't gone away.
If you want something that's personal, insightful, something that will make you think about the world, our place in it, A Promised Land, it's worth your time. Pick up a copy. Let us know what you think. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, keep diving deep.